for my Four Peaks Kiltlifter clone. Being here in Arizona, this is probably one of the better beers here, at least until they sold out to InBev. But I'm going to show you my process of how I can take it from a secondary to my keg. And hopefully I can help someone out there, as well as if people have better suggestions for me. I'm always willing to hear them out. All right, see you in a bit. Okay, here's my two buckets. One is cleaner, one is sanitizer. Pretty much self-explanatory of what I use, PBW and Star Sand. These are the two that I like to use. Some people use the iodine stuff and other chemical cleaners. To each their own. I use several different kinds. The thing about the PBW is it works at any temperature. I like to get it as hot as possible through my tap water. And it will do its thing, and then I rinse it off at approximately the same temperature. And then I'll go and stick it in the Star Sand. This has already been cleaned, but I'll still go and put a little bit more PBW inside the keg as well as the Star Sand when the time comes. This right here is my Kiltlifter clone. It's projected to be at about 6%. So when I get ready to take my test sample, you'll be able to see a better color of it. But she looks right about right. So see you in a bit. Alright, so the cleaning is done. So now it's just nothing more than handful. Basically just rinsing them down, sticking it in the sanitizer. Don't let that sit for a while. Obviously, having sanitizer touching plastic of any sort will slowly degrade it because it is an acid after all. But leaving it in here for a few hours shouldn't hurt anything. Other than that, I'll show you a little technique that I use to clean my kegs with. Okay, so now I got all my little parts in the sanitizer now. So now it's time to fill my keg. This could get a little messy. So this is about 3 gallons, I guess, of the PBW. So I'm just going to do half of the keg at a time. So I'm just going to let that soak 5-6 minutes or so, and then I'll flip it over. By the way, one of the reasons why I have my Kiltlifter out now while I'm sanitizing everything and cleaning everything is because when I pulled this out of my chest freezer or my fermentation chamber, I stirred everything up when I was moving it. So I set it out here, let it kind of get a little bit to room temperature, let it sit 40-45 minutes, let everything kind of settle back down, so that way all that trub and everything can stay at the bottom and I'm not sucking it up and going into my keg. So just a little food for thought on that as well. Alright, I've left my keg about half full of the PBW, and basically what I'm going to do is take my PBW bucket, put it right on top, and flip it over. Kind of let it drain out a little bit. That way I get both sides, get underneath where the poppets are and everything else like that, because you want to make sure everything's clean. You don't want to worry about any kind of contamination. So I'll do this the same way with the Star Sand, and so you should see me putting the keg together here in a little bit. All right, while the keg itself is sanitizing, I figure I'll go ahead and start putting together all the poppets and start lubing everything. So I use that stuff right there. It's keg lube, or another version of it. It's food grade safe. So you want to re-lube all of your O-rings after you clean it every time, as well as inspecting them, because eventually they'll crack, dry rot, etc., etc. So you always want to inspect them, and I make sure that they're all nice and gooey, as it were. So it's just a matter of just putting everything back together Also, don't forget about your pressure relief valve. That sucker has a little O-ring or grommet thing at the end as well. So you want to make sure that that's all lubed up. As well as your poppets, or the inside poppet as well. Your O-rings for the outside of your ball lock, as well as your CO2 and your serving tube O-rings. You want to make sure all those are all lubed up and clean and good to go. Alright, now it's time to start putting my keg together. I've already put my O-ring with the silicone on it already, onto my serving tube. I identify mine, quick identification, is, I put something for the the CO2 side. So you can either do that as well, or even on here, kind of hard to see, you'll see it where it says in, other side says out, obviously in for CO2, out for the serving tube. So it's just a matter of putting everything together, making sure everything lines up. One of the things you want to look for, I don't know how hard it's going to be to see in there, you see the end of the dip tube. There's a shallow recess right there in the center. You want to make sure that that dip tube stays in that little recess hole. So that is the out. So you want to grab the appropriate poppet. You tell between the two. Obviously one's size, and that could come in later. This one has some nicks on the sides compared to this one. The ones with the little nicks on the sides, that's meant for the CO2 side. The one with no nicks, see how the sides are all smooth? That's meant for the serving pressure side. So, just want to take this side, go and put it on, grab the appropriate wrench. Some will actually be 7/8 and some will be 11/16. I just grab both because sometimes I got a Frankenstein version of it. And so basically, you just want to put a nice little, make sure that thing's nice and snug. And then you can see on the inside that my serving tube stayed in that little recessed hole. And basically everything the same applies for the inside, as well as putting on the pop-up valve and the ball lock valve and everything else, as well as putting on the lid. So here in a little bit, we're going to start doing some siphoning. Depending on where you get your O-rings from too, for their O-ring replacement kits. Most of mine come with a green and a red, sorry about that, with a green and a red O-rings. You can disseminate which one it is. Once again, I keep it for easy identification. I keep the red as bad, red as stop. So that's going to be my CO2 side. So I have that identified, and this is going to say in. And I keep green as my good side, my go side, which is my serving side, which is going to say my out right there. So there's just another little trick to help use as a quick identifier for your kegs. So next thing I'm going to do is I'm going to put the lid on, and then I'm going to actually put a little bit of CO2 in here. I'm going to make sure nothing leaks, because nothing would suck more putting all your beer in here, adding pressure, and the thing's leaking like a sieve. I'd rather find out ahead of time. Plus, because CO2 is heavier than air, I get a little CO2 in there, so I actually have a barrier between the air and the beer that I put inside, because obviously air is bad for beer. So stay tuned. Okay, so here at my keg, or my kegerator, my Beersmith program tells me that my Kiltlifter itself is going to be at a 10.1 psi for serving pressure. I leave all my beers at normal serving pressure. I don't overcarb it. I don't put it at 30 psi for 12 hours. I don't do any of that stuff. I have time. Plus, I have another beer. This is a Saison I just tapped. Check out my 2 videos for that, if you want to see how I made that one. So here's my CO2 tap. You notice how black is serving, gray is work. Sorry about that. a little video problem. As you can see, CO2 is gray, black is the serving top. Obviously we're not doing the serving top right now, doing nothing but filling our keg with some CO2. We'll let it bleed off a little bit. Let the air escape and put CO2 in its place. As well as take the Star Sand and start spraying everywhere, looking for any leaks. It looks good, so now it's time to put some beer in this bad boy. Okay, if you could see the smokish kind of stuff in there, it's actually the CO2. So I've already put the siphoning tube in. I have this extra high, so the bottom of this thing is only about halfway down, if that. Just want to give that one little extra more time to let this thing settle out before I try to suck it up. Also took a sample. This is supposed to be about a 16 SRM. So now it's just a matter of siphoning it. And basically we just sit and wait. Keep an eye out for when the bottom of the siphon starts to get ready to expose. I'll go ahead and put this down a little bit more, until it goes all the way to the bottom. And by that time, okay, got it be full. I'm keeping the lid on. Just want to avoid as much air exposure as possible. Don't want to let any of that CO2 out. As I said, air is your enemy. So next time you see is when basically I just put it in the kegerator. Alright, now the last thing to basically do, reconnect the CO2 to my keg and bleed everything off. Gotta bring it in a little closer, because I do still have a little bit of air in there. And now it's time to start carbonating, because this thing is extremely full. It's not going to have a whole lot of dead space in there. I like to do it about 3 or 4 times. And now it sits for 2 weeks. And it'll sit right next to my Saison. So that's pretty much it. If there's anything else you want to know how I did this, just go and leave a comment right down below me, and I'll try to get back to you as soon as possible. See you later. Cheers and happy brewing.